Good morning on April the 2nd. I hope you all had a very good Easter. Especially you out there in the Far East, Middle East, sorry, Rose. I hope you all had a good Easter. This is now Tuesday. Officially, the university is still closed, but I'm going to press on with this anyway because I don't like these sessions overhanging. So, only one correspondent this week, and that's Nikki. Good on you, Nikki, holding the side up there. If it wasn't for you talking to me, who would? You know. And Nicola has gone into the subject of rehabilitation. Now, I've got to tell you, I'm a great believer in cardiac rehabilitation. There's something deeply, deeply reassuring about the rehabilitation process. You know, if you think that your heart isn't working properly and that you might drop dead all of a sudden, the idea that number one, other people are in your position and they look okay, and number two, the idea that they press you into exercising in these exercise groups convinces you that, blimey, if you can do this, you can do anything that your normal day-to-day life is going to demand of you. So I'm a great believer in it, really, a great believer. You know, and it's a good opportunity for all the patients to ask about those strange things that are happening in their bodies due to the medication, etc. You know, I was used to the idea that my feet would go cold with beta blockers, but it came as a sort of reassurance that everybody else in the room got the tip of their nose cold. I wasn't waiting for that, you know. But the tip of your nose going cold is a really sort of odd sensation somehow. And the idea that everybody else in the room has got the same one is pretty reassuring. So, you know, it's physically worthwhile. It's psychologically much more than physically, I think, anyway, worthwhile. And I asked you that and on the actual the lesson itself. I asked you, look, has anybody ever seen any ill effects? And Nikki says, no, she hasn't. In her communications with me, that is, you know, no, she hasn't seen any ill effects of cardiac rehabilitation. And what I was driving when I asked that question was, you know, yeah, look, let me put it this way. I went to a meeting at the Northwest Heart Failure Forum in a hotel somewhere, and one of the rehabilitation nurses came in, and everyone was dead solicitous about it. They were all going over, oh, you're all right, you're all right. And the word had got out. The word had got out in the sort of heart failure nurses network that someone had showed up for a rehabilitation class, collapsed in the room, needed resuscitation that was unsuccessful, and the person died in front of everyone. Well, there was that kind of thing that I was going for when I was asking you. Um, you know, and Nikki hasn't seen anything like that. You know, and most of the reason why everybody crowded around this nurse is that it's a very unusual situation to see. Really, you know, if somebody looks unwell and looks as though they aren't going to manage the exercise, then there's nurses there and they'll stop them going in for it. You know, and send them home, or send them to have a sit down, or do something else. Um, You know, the one thing that I did think when I was considering my replies to the correspondences, I wonder in comparison to working in a coronary care unit, for instance, I wonder if it isn't a little dull, you know, for the nurses involved. I wonder if you don't get a bit bored. I mean, there are several advantages. You know, you don't have to work the weekend, fair enough. You're off shifts and nights, fair enough. And nobody seems to go back from being a rehabilitation nurse into, you know, the front line, fair enough. But looking at it as work, every day is kind of the same. You know, there's a repetitive thing going on there. So I just wonder, you know, I just wonder. I mean, the same could be said for me, that the work that I do is kind of repetitive, and I suppose in one sense it is, but in another sense it's like a kaleidoscope, you know. All the same elements are there, like, but each time it looks completely different. Yes, the importance, Nicola says, the importance of good warm up. When I first went along to the rehabilitation group that I was in, they did all the warm up for me, and I thought that was the exercise. I thought that all the warm up. Oh well, that's fair enough. That put me through my paces there, and that wasn't the exercises itself. That was just the warm up. The exercises started after that. Um, I asked in the lesson, um, would it make sense to separate off the people who've had ST elevation MRIs from the people who've got heart failure and give them tailored rehabilitation programs designed for each condition? You know, that was the point that I made. And Nikki said, well, whether or not it's a good idea, it isn't going to happen in the current context. You know, rehabilitation has to argue the case for its survival each year anyway. You know, the idea that we're going to be splitting off into different types and having separate staff for different types of heart failure and different types of condition, whether or not it's a good idea, it isn't going to happen. And, you know, absolutely, everything's fighting for survival at the moment. You know, although I do wonder, now that we've gone down the route of the National Health Service is never going to be the same again after the 1st of April. I do wonder whether or not I won't be seeing cardiac rehabilitation services at my local Tesco's. I haven't had any essays in yet to take a look at. I'm rather looking forward to getting them. I'll say looking forward in the broadest sense. I'm staring into the future, waiting for it to happen. But the longer that you leave it, the less attention I can give each particular essay. I would have, by now, you should pretty much, I would have said, have your essay ready, you know, and now you can put it away and go back and look at it again and re-edit it and iron out all of the glitches in it. But I bet you nobody has. No matter how many times I say that, no one ever pays any attention. But as soon as you've got anything for me to take a look at, don't hesitate to send it in, and I will see you soon. Bye now.